Welcome to our deep dive into the English present tense. We've got this guide to help us navigate all the twists and turns. You might be surprised. I was surprised to learn just how much complexity hides in plain sight. Did you know the present tense, it isn't just about now, it can actually be used to talk about the past and this future. It's like a grammatical time machine.
It really is. We often think of tenses as fixed points on a timeline past, present, future. But the present tense can blur those lines in fascinating ways.
Okay, let's unpack this. The guide mentions four main forms of the present tense: simple present, present continuous, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. I have to admit, even I'm feeling a little intimidated by that last one.
Let's break them down and see how they each contribute to this time-bending effect. Think of them as different tools for shaping time in our communication.
I like that. Tools for shaping time. So where do we even begin?
Well, the simplest form, aptly named the simple present, is often where we learn to ground ourselves in the present moment. The sun rises in the east, water boils at 100 degrees. These are timeless truths expressed in the simple present. It's the foundation on which we build our understanding of the world.
But then, the present continuous seems to add a layer of dynamism. It's not just that something is, but that it's actively happening right now. Like the wind is howling outside, or I'm getting hungry just thinking about dinner. It paints a more vivid picture, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The present continuous brings us into the immediacy of the moment. And that sense of immediacy can be incredibly powerful, even when we're talking about the past.
Wait, hold on. You're saying we can use the present continuous to talk about the past. How does that work?
Think about how we tell stories. Instead of saying, I walked into the room and saw a ghost, am I just saying, I'm walking into the room and suddenly I'm seeing a ghost?
Okay, yeah, that second version is way creepier. It's like you're pulling me right into the story with you.
Exactly. By shifting into the present continuous, you create a sense of immediacy. Even though the event happened in the past, it's a technique often used in storytelling to heighten tension and immerse the audience in the action.
So even though we're talking about a past event, using the present continuous makes it feel like it's happening right now. It's almost like we're manipulating the listener's perception of time.
Precisely. And that manipulation can be quite effective. It's like we're giving the present tense the power to reach back into the past and pull it into the present moment.
This is already blowing my mind. And we haven't even touched on the perfect tenses yet.
Well, the present perfect and present perfect continuous might seem intimidating at first glance, but they're really just building on these ideas of connection and immediacy. They allow us to link past actions to the present moment in more nuanced ways.
Okay, I'm ready. Give me the lowdown on the present perfect. What's the special trick?
The present perfect allows us to talk about something that happened in the past, but has a direct relevance to the present. For instance, instead of saying, I studied French in college, you might say, I have studied French. This implies that the knowledge or experience gained from studying French is still with you today. It's part of who you are now.
Ah, so it's not just about a past event, but about how that event continues to resonate in the present. That makes a lot of sense. What about the present perfect continuous? How does that fit into the picture?
The present perfect continuous focuses on the duration of an action that started in the past and continues into the present. It emphasizes the ongoing nature of the action. For example, I have been working on this project for weeks, suggests a sense of both effort and continuity. It's not just that you worked on it at some point in the past, but that you've been consistently engaged with it, and that engagement is still ongoing.
It really highlights the journey aspect of the action, doesn't it?
Precisely. And again, we see how a seemingly simple tense can convey such subtle shades of meaning, shaping our understanding of time and experience.
You know, I think what's fascinating here is that we often use these perfect tenses without even realizing it. It's like they're woven into the fabric of our everyday language.
Absolutely. And that's what makes studying grammar so intriguing. It's not just about memorizing rules. It's about uncovering the hidden patterns and logic that shape how we communicate.
So we've got these four forms of the present tense, each with its own way of coloring time. But I'm still stuck on this idea of the present tense as a time machine. We've talked about reaching back into the past, but what about peering into the future? How does that work?
It's surprisingly common. Think about how we talk about scheduled events. The train leaves at 8 p.m. The movie starts in 10 minutes. These are future events, but we're using the present tense to express them.
You're right. It's like the present tense becomes a tool for certainty, locking those future events into place. It's almost like saying, this will happen. It's as good as done.
Exactly. And that sense of certainty can be really powerful. It can create a sense of anticipation. excitement, even urgency.
So it's not just about conveying information, it's about shaping the listener's perception of the future. I'm starting to see how this seemingly simple tense is actually quite sophisticated.
It really is. And it's not just limited to scheduled events. We also use the present tense to talk about our plans and intentions. I'm meeting a friend for coffee tomorrow. We're going on vacation next month. These are future actions expressed in the present tense.
It's like by using the present tense, we're making those future actions feel more real, more tangible in the present moment. It's almost as if we're willing them into existence.
That's a great way to put it. It's like we're bridging the gap between now and the future, collapsing time with our words.
Okay, so we've seen how the present tense can be used to add immediacy to past events and certainty to future events. It's like this chameleon of a tense adapting to different contexts and purposes. But I think it's time to step back for a moment and make sure we're all on the same page. Can we do a quick recap of how the present tense fits into the larger landscape of tenses?
Absolutely. It's easy to get lost in the nuances. So let's ground ourselves in the basics. We have three main tenses: past, present, and future. Each serves a specific function in anchoring our actions and events in time. The past tense allows us to recount what has already happened, to tell stories, and to reflect on our experiences. The future tense, on the other hand, lets us project forward, to express our hopes, plans, and predictions.
And the present tense sits right in the middle, capturing the now of our experience.
Exactly. It's the anchor point, the reference point from which we navigate both the past and the future.
This is really making me appreciate the present tense in a whole new light. It's like the central hub of our language, connecting us to all points in time. But even though we've explored the different ways it can be used, I'm curious, are there any common pitfalls people fall into when using the present tense? Mistakes that even native speakers might make?
You're right. Even those of us who grew up speaking English can sometimes stumble over these nuances. One common mistake is forgetting that some verbs don't have a continuous form. These are called stative verbs, and they describe states of being or conditions rather than actions. Think of verbs like love, believe, know, or own. We wouldn't say, "I am loving you," or "I am knowing the answer," would we?
That does sound a bit odd. It's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. These verbs simply exist in a constant state. They don't happen in the same way that actions do.
That's a good reminder to pay attention to the specific verb we're using, and to consider whether it makes sense in a continuous form. Are there any other common traps we should be aware of?
Another common mistake is mixing up the simple present and present continuous. Remember, the simple present is for habits, routines, and general truths. The present continuous, on the other hand, is for actions happening right now.
So saying, "I'm knowing the answer," would be incorrect, because it implies that knowing is an ongoing action rather than a state of being.
Exactly. In that case, you would simply say, "I know the answer."
This is really helpful. It's like you're giving us a roadmap for navigating the tricky terrain of the present tense.
I'm glad you find it helpful. It's all about paying attention to the subtle clues and understanding the underlying logic of the language.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's amazing how much complexity can be packed into a seemingly simple tense.
It's a testament to the power and flexibility of language. And remember, this is just the beginning. There's always more to discover, more nuances to explore.
Well, I'm feeling inspired to go out and pay closer attention to how I use the present tense in my own life. It's like a whole new world has opened up.
That's the beauty of language learning. It's a journey of constant discovery.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final question. We've talked about the present tense as a time machine, but what about its role in shaping our understanding of the present moment itself? How does the way we use the present tense affect how we experience now?
That's a great question. And it leads us to some even deeper insights about the power of language. The present tense isn't just a neutral tool for describing the present moment. It can actually shape our perception of it, influencing how we experience time and reality.
Okay, now you've really piqued my curiosity. Tell me more. How does the present tense have this power to shape our experience?
Well, consider the difference between saying, "I am stressed," and "I feel stressed." Both statements describe a present state of being, but the first implies a more permanent condition, while the second suggests a more temporary feeling.
That's fascinating. So even within the present tense, there are subtle ways we can frame our experience, highlighting certain aspects over others. It's like we're choosing how to present our reality to the world.
Exactly, and those choices have consequences. The way we use language can impact our thoughts, feelings, and even our behavior.
So by becoming more aware of how we use the present tense, we can actually gain more control over how we experience and interact with the world around us.
That's the power of language awareness. It empowers us to make more conscious choices about how we express ourselves and how we shape our reality.
It's amazing to think that something as seemingly simple as, present tense can have such a profound impact on how we experience the world. It's like we're not just describing reality, we're actively shaping it with our
It
words.
is. It is a powerful realization.
Mm.
And it really does highlight the importance of being mindful of our language choices. Even subtle shifts in tense or wording can have a significant impact on how we perceive ourselves and the world around us.
This deep dive has definitely made me more aware of all the nuances of the present tense. It's like I've been speaking this language all my life, but I'm only now starting to truly understand its depths.
That's the beauty of language learning. It's a journey of constant discovery. The more we explore, the more we realize how much there is to learn.
And it's not just about grammar rules. It's about understanding the psychology behind language, how it shapes our thoughts, emotions, and even our behavior.
Absolutely. Grammar is just the framework. The real magic lies in how we use that framework to express ourselves, to connect with others, and to create meaning in the world.
So as we wrap up our exploration of the present tense, what key takeaway would you leave our listeners with? What's the one thing you hope they'll remember from this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that the present tense isn't just about the present moment. It's a versatile tool that we can use to shape time, to create immediacy, to express certainty, and even to influence how we experience reality.
That's a powerful message. It's a reminder that language is not just a passive tool for communication. It's an active force that we can wield to shape our world.
Exactly. And the more we understand about how language works, the more effectively we can use it to achieve our goals, to connect with others,
Yeah.
and to create the life we want.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power and versatility of the present tense.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you and exploring these fascinating nuances.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to continue this exploration on your own. Pay attention to how you use the present tense in your everyday life. Experiment with different forms and notice how they impact your communication.
And remember, language is a living, breathing thing. It's
Mhm.
constantly evolving, and there's always more to discover. So keep exploring, keep playing with language, and keep learning.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the English present tense. Until next time, happy exploring.